that 6-line process of people looking up to you, you might not notice that like a lot or only in little things. And that's because the world isn't ready yet. We got a lot of work to do. It's not you they're not looking up to. It's the deafness of all of us for having been conditioned in the soup for so long. So, I mean, it is there and you already know it, Sarah. I just wanted to point that out because sometimes it's a trip and people wonder what the hell. Um, anyway, so how do you balance your trial and error nature with the need for the principles to be respected? How do you balance this thing that bumps into things and does stuff and is willing to stick by its principles with the fact that you're bumping into stuff and you need to be respected regardless that you knock something over by accident? I mean, as an example. So how do you guys balance that? How does that feel when you're doing that and living that out?
And then I really like the juxtaposition of like, controlled chaos and planned spontaneity and everything. So if I know that something's like going to be bad, like, just do it fast, bad, and wrong. And you just like get it all out the way and then just fix it later and just give myself freedom for it to be like chaotic, but peacefully.
For me, I think it comes from entering into the experience itself correctly, meaning to understand that I'm just experimenting here. I'm not attached to the outcome. It may work, it may not work. Coming from this place, I feel more comfortable into trying new things, into getting to more experiences, and I feel more comfortable probably sharing that with people to kind of respect my principles, just have no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me on my end, it's been a lot of learning currently to fail forward, because previously it's been a lot. I think I'd have a lot of perfectionism and I want things to be a certain way. So if I have a task, say I'm supposed to design a poster, and I'm looking at it and I start figuring, I'm like, okay, so how would Jessica make it look like? How would, and I'm already expecting the end without even going through the process. So I panic and then I do it last minute. So now I've learned, just do it and then get corrected either along the way or at the end, and then work on that versus just holding too long on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think before human design, if I made mistakes, there was just always this innate feeling of that everything was just going to be okay. Like I just always knew that like no matter what happened, it was going to be okay. But then now that I know about human design and everything makes sense, I just have more grace for myself and just more confidence, I think. So if I make a mistake, I just think, well, this is just part of the process.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of compassion is needed, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. A lot.
It's definitely all of those things. That was really good answers, just sort of starting to get used to the thing. Part of this value of your profile is there's no such thing as a mistake. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to comprehend in our world that punishes or rewards the right mistakes or not. I mean, we reward mistakes. Somebody got paid a lot of money to go through all the mistakes of making our iPhones before they finally worked, right? So it's not like we don't reward them, but it's kept under wraps, that reward. We don't want to, that's sort of not who we are. Can you share a time in your life when you stood firm on your principles after, it keeps saying making a mistake, after bumping into something what might have appeared to be a mistake, where you stood firm by this stuff and just stood firm like a brick wall in the face of the adversity of the person or people that you may have affected? So how did that feel compared to when you didn't? This is the big part of the question. How did it feel compared to the times that you caved in on your principles? I assume most of us have caved a time or two in our life. And so if you can remember back to that and just, what did that feel like? Could you tell there was a difference? One empowered you, one didn't.
I'll go. I can go.
No,
For me, honestly, before learning about human design, I had this relationship with my emotional authority. I wouldn't call it emotional authority, but I just learned that I'm not the kind of person that I should just make decisions like, from the moment. Like I should be really taking my time, especially like with big life-changing decisions. So one of the biggest decisions that I made was, it was a career that I worked for, like for 6 years, and I worked really hard for to get like a certain job position, and I stayed in that position for 2 years, and then I decided it looked to the others that it just, I guess a product of the moment, that I just decided that I'm gonna quit. But I was in this process of, I'm gonna go for another year in this job and I see if I'm gonna like it, or if this is gonna work, if this is gonna be like a long-term thing. So it's looking at it now from here, it feels like the emotional authority and also the trial and error process is like, I'm still in the process. I have not made a final decision by staying or final decision by quitting. I'm still like collecting data and see how I feel about where I'm at. And then, once I reach clarity, I was able to make that decision, even though that there was a lot of pressure from family and friends, like, you're making a huge mistake. But I felt more in tune with my internal world, that this is a decision that I'm making for me, and no one else knows about the consequences of making decisions. It's I'm gonna have to deal with these consequences. So, in short, I guess strategy and authority.
For me, I think generally, okay, for a long time I've been a people pleaser based, either on trauma experiences and seeking validation. And the one time I can recall was at the end of 2019. We went for a holiday, and I kept asking myself, why am I leaving where we were? It was a coastal town, and I said, why are you leaving? And when I went back home, I said, I'm going to look for a job and move. I didn't have a reason in terms of being able to quantify, because I was like, I don't have the money to move, but given a chance, I would have just left and just gone there. And I remember telling myself, you know what, it doesn't matter what anyone says. It doesn't matter even if there's no plan, you're going to find a job, so at least you can sustain yourself. And I remember within a week of making that decision, I found a job, and I did the interview, and they asked me, you're taking like a pay cut, a huge pay cut. And I said, I just need to move and eat, like I can afford to do the basic things. And they were so confused, and they're like, but in the city, like, your qualifications are so much higher. And I said, it doesn't matter. This is what I want. And by the time I was telling my family, I was giving them information. I was not asking for permission, because I've always had that, hey, I'm thinking of this point. It was, but there I'm moving. And everyone is like, what do you mean? What's happening? And they didn't even give them time to think about it, because the next day I was out. And I think for me, it was one of the best, like that moment where I have the conviction, I feel like I'm making a mistake or bumping into something, but the validation came from within. And that is now what I feel satisfies me or gives me the calm, versus waiting externally, like, having to ask someone, should I do this, or what do you think? So I think that for me is that experience.
Yeah.
Did you want to go?
I mean, you can go if you want, but I mean, it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was still like thinking of how to formulate my answer, but I can just go. So,
Same, yeah.
Yeah, with the whole standing on principles and everything, like integrity has been like a very big thing for me, like my whole life. And then like with like being a 3-6 and everything, like all the everything, like bumping into everything and like learning by doing and just having like audacity and conviction to be out in the universe and like Just trying to figure out how to just like do things and just decide that it's going to be okay. And if I'm not okay, I'll just figure out how to be okay after that. So like I've just like been developing a relationship with just having conviction and audacity within myself and like daring the universe. Like I'm just going to be okay, like no matter what it seems like. I was trying to like find a way to put that into better words, but that's about what I was thinking of.
I like that because growing up, I'm Filipino, and anytime I wanted to do something, I would have, family members. There's a saying in Tagalog, but it's basically translates to like, who does she think she is? And so I've always had to kind of have the audacity to go after whatever I want. And it sucks because, with the trial and error process, like we're going to make it'll look like mistakes to other people. And so it was just really frustrating having to explain myself sometimes, especially to my parents, like, this is what I want to do. But, they'll say, oh, but, how are you going to do this? Or, you're probably not going to make as much as if you do this job. So yeah, it was just really frustrating. But again, it's like that innate like feeling. I don't know. I just always had this sense of it's going to work out. And I don't know, it always has. So
Yeah, we're very optimistic.
yeah.
Mhm. This whole process is amazing. Guys are giving really thoughtful answers, and you're starting to see this whole convictions process, this whole principles process. It's there, and part of this role model is literally living that out. And the people that don't like it up front, they become the folks that aren't primary in your life as much. And that's half of what human design gives us. As sad as it is, sometimes we move on a little bit. Never forget, you still love them. It's just that there's a moving on process. We need that so that y'all can be the rest of the way whole. We all can, we're the first souls giving this to the world. So if you think about it, it's finally breaking out now in our lifetime. So next question. What strategies help you tell the difference between your trial and error process or mistakes that help you grow and those that don't? Have you found that every mistake can be beneficial in some way? Have you found the strength and the empowerment in the recognition that your process of trying and trying and trying things and that sustaining ability, what have you found? Have you found that there's always something beneficial in it?
Mhm. Yeah, I like the statement like never make the same mistake twice. Do it slightly differently so that you get like a different flavor of wisdom from it. So that's how I like to live life. You can make the same mistake worse or slightly better, maybe a little bit to the left or to the right, but never the exact same mistake. Some has to be different for it to be productive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think as long as you learn from it, no matter how big or small, I think it's yeah, I think it's necessary. I don't know. I think everything that happens like on our path, like it happens for a reason. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both your answers. I felt like most of the mistakes that I got into, or the attempts or trial and error processes that I've been in, and it was kind of painful at the end, it was because I was making the same mistake again. I was entering probably in a very similar experience. I felt like I didn't um, improve, or I didn't like do something different in this next coming experience, which feels which is really hard for a 3-6. I feel like as a 3-6 we can be really hard on ourselves as being perfectionists. Like we always want to look good, we always want to do our best. So to come out of an experience that looks like it's failed, and also the outcome didn't really improve our growth process, can feel really painful. So yeah, just don't do the same mistake again.
Mhm.
I think on my part, mistakes have been harder from the external, like the society. I've grown up in a system where it's quite village, like people around you are quite invested in you. And when I look at it now, I always look at, yes, it's my mistake. Say if I tripped and fell, it's me who's fallen. We have not all fallen. And one thing I at some point when I was going through so much, I prayed to God and I said, I don't even want the troubles to go anymore, because it clearly they're still there and proceeding. I said, teach me the lessons, allow me to see the lessons. And now for me, that's how I feel like I'm always failing forward, be it success, be it, mistakes, bumping into things, so that in everything, because sometimes you're immersed in something, say like in a relationship, and you're like, wow, this is the best man I could ever have found. Then you're blind to many things, but at the end, yes, I feel the heart, but I always ask, what are the lessons that I can get from this? So that way I'm able to process my healing better. I'm able to see the gaps, that maybe the loopholes that I left out. So I think for me it's become quite fun, even through the pain. Yeah.
And sometimes it can be really annoying. Like last week, I lost my phone on the subway, and I was so frustrated. And I was like, you know what? This is a lesson. And it all worked out fine. Like I ended up tracking it on Find My iPhone, and I met up with the person who got it, and I got my phone back. And at the end, I was like, you know what? This is all for a reason, and there's a lesson to be learned here. But at the same time, it's like, did this really have to happen? But, the lesson's there. I just need to be better about keeping my phone on me.
Yeah, and gratitude.
Plus, it added an extra trip and a whole other experience.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, usually I'll like find myself like telling myself like thank you. Like I'll like, if I like stub my toe or something, it's like, oh, I just wasn't paying attention. I'm glad I reminded myself that I gotta like pay more attention next time, and I just keep a good mood and keep it pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you guys have just been talking about speaks to what the 3-6 profile is here doing. I mean, we're all here doing this to one degree, but you guys are sort of at the tip of the spear, and it's shattering through darkness in order to allow the light in. The light that disinfects and basically brings everyone whole again. It's a shattering, because the darkness is in the mistakes. It's in the you have to have principles in the first place for what? And anyway, so last question. I don't know if this is the last one, but how do you navigate the balance between the third lines? Now there's a skepticism in the third line, and we talked about it, a type of a pessimism that helps with you sort of seeing the world. It's only there to be a limited perspective, a taste of how to look at things, but it can overrun the life. So how do you guys navigate the balance between this third line skepticism and the 6 lines optimism? Can you share how this impacts your decision making and outlook on life, and just share in general, how have you learned to navigate this balance between your 3rd and 6th line process, skepticism to optimism, and the right balance of that?
I think for me, it just came with age. Like over time, I just made so many mistakes and learned so many lessons that the optimism just overpowers the skepticism. Like, again, like the mistakes will be annoying. The trial and error process is annoying, but I just always think to myself, like, there's something to be learned here, and I'll come out wiser and know so much more afterwards.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also for me, when I started to kind of focus on myself and focus on my own process without comparing myself to people who seem to be in a similar life situation as me, it kind of helped to not fall into that pessimism of why I'm not there where I'm at, because I know this is my own process, and I know also the same process of trial and error with this is skepticism and pessimism, as well as the optimism. it led me to some discoveries that other people would not also, get to. So I feel like there is definitely a payout of our process that it's going to be just looking different than other people. And once I just focus like, okay, this is me and it's different from everybody else, it kind of helps because there is this harmony between the 3 and 6, and which I feel it. Sometimes I find myself talking to myself and like, yeah, it's gonna be okay. Like, in a way that probably the closest people will not be able to, to put that love into me. So yeah, but it came definitely with age. It came with experiences.
Yeah, for me, the optimism always wins, and sometimes to a fault, because I found myself in situations where I've trusted people too much or thought too highly of people or situations, and then it turned out, like, well, maybe I shouldn't have trusted them with all of this, or maybe I should have, been more skeptical at the beginning. But I have the gate of doubt and everything and stuff, so I always start from the bottom, like when I'm rethinking a thing and stuff. So it's easy for me to all right, let me build this entire concept that I spent 3 years thinking about from the bottom just because that one thing doesn't seem quite right anymore. So I'll rebuild entire things and stuff. But in terms of people and situations, blind faith a lot of the time, and sometimes it's selective ignorance being bliss.
I think for me, I also agree about the age part of things, because I think the more you experience, the more you're able to see and feel and maybe discern things as they happen. Because I feel like I have rebirths of my own self where things are tumultuous and then it comes back up and it's better, and then it goes round and round, and in those moments I'm able to move, of course when I'm in the downside of things, I'm just feeling, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Is this going to really work? Can I believe in my ability? Then I remember, oh, you can't get something I wouldn't have the idea if I wasn't able to prove it, or if I wasn't able to at least attempt it. So I feel like I'm almost always having a dance with the two. But then when my conviction is high and I'm blinded, I'm like, this has to work and I believe it's going to work, then those are the moments where nothing else matters aside from it will work. I may not know the how, but that energy tends to flow in a way. I will start either meeting the people who will help me or have circumstances that enable that success to happen.
Always work out.
Amazing. You all had such amazing, insightful, well thought answers. I love hearing all of the different perspectives and all the life lived experiences. We on this channel live for that. So thank you for sharing yourself so deeply with us and so openly. It is an absolute treat. And I'm sure our audience, we get a lot of our audience watching the replay. So they're going to be taking so many wisdom nuggets from everything you shared. So thank you for that. Very much appreciated.